I do this video somewhat reluctantly for the pure and simple reason that over the last few games, things have got better under West Ham. And I think there's a lot of latent anger from people that didn't want David Moyes criticised. And now we've started to do well again. And there's been a lot of feisty comments on YouTube and on social media in particular, which is, you know, anyone that was not 100% behind David Moyes over the last 12 months, including myself, has got both barrels from some people. So I've done this reluctantly because I do appreciate I'm probably swimming against the tide here. But I wanted to do a video anyway, and the video is really about a couple of concerns that I've still got for, let's just say, what it is for the remainder of the season, which in turn would have a knock-on effect to David Moyes' retention, which I don't want to talk about that overly now, but it is from now until the end of the season. But this is why in the past 2 or 3 games, I've resisted the opportunity to crown David Moyes, well, number one, with a new 3-year contract or whatever it is, or or credit him with winning the Conference League and getting us a mid-table finish. Because that's what I've said. Can we just wait and see if it happens yet? Now, don't get me wrong. Let me get this absolutely right. This isn't even a disclaimer. This is what I think. I think there were numerous things that went well against Liverpool. I do not subscribe to the opinion that the players aren't playing for David Moyes. I really don't. I think they are. I don't think he's lost the dressing room. Do I think for a period there were players that were frustrated with the tactics? Yes, I do. But I also don't think that the only reason West Ham are playing better now is because they're not doing anything David Moyes says. They've decided to do it on their own. I don't believe that. Okay, I believe beforehand we were doing crap because of David Moyes, and at the moment now we're doing better because of David Moyes. I think both are true. I also think we were okay against Liverpool. I thought there were times when we attacked well. I don't think David Moyes did his usual thing of not attacking or not going for the win against one of the traditional Sky Sports Big Six teams. I don't think he did that. I think we went for it. I think we tried to win the game. I really do. I think we deserved a draw from it. So let me just get all of that out the way. There are positives and lots of them, and our form has been so much better this season. Oh, sorry, this season. I mean, in the last little while. However, I think if you can almost wrap that up and use that as a little bit of a cliche and not look at the fine detail. I think it's the same reason with what happened with the referee. Was it Kavanagh? I think his name was Kavanagh. That the things got wrong, whether it's the referee or VAR or whatever. But I think if you go too hard on that, then you might miss some of the other stuff, which I think was key and was important. And that was the fact that we were absolutely knackered. And that's one of the worries. And the other worries is the substitutions, in particular Danny Ings and Maxwell Cornet. But they're 2 very different reasons, by the way, in terms of Cornet and Danny Ings. Hopefully we've got time to cover both of them in this video. But in terms of fatigue level, I don't say this with hindsight. It was quite obvious we were going to be knackered for this game. You could actually see it against Bournemouth, particularly in the front 3. Again, not hindsight. I spoke about it in 2 or 3 videos. They just weren't pressing from the front. They didn't have the same energy. How could they? It's totally understandable. It was so good against Arsenal. It was really good against Ghent. And Bournemouth, we sort of sat back and soaked it up a little bit. This game against Liverpool was another level below that in terms of pressing, in terms of energy. My own personal choice, my own personal preference was to sort of save a few. I mentioned it. I talked about Zuma. I talked about Antonio. I talked about Bowen. About giving some time off in terms of in particular, the Liverpool game, and them going against Palace really, really fresh. Now, don't get me wrong. It may well work. It may well be that we go and beat Palace anyway. However, it's not that I'm particularly worried about. What worries me most is we got to a situation last season whereby David Moyes' own admissions, the team were knackered by the time we got to the semi-finals. They're his words. Well, we all knew it. It's not that David Moyes is saying something that we don't know. We were knackered by the time we got to that stage. And we shouldn't be this season. And the reason we shouldn't be is, well, it's because he spent £200 million on players and we got a bigger squad. Look at the bench. Look at the bench from the game you just watched against Liverpool. Whether you think those people should have started, shouldn't have started, irrespective of what your what your chosen formation is and what your chosen first team is, that bench isn't the same as last season. We used to look at it last season. We used to look at it and used to maybe sometimes see Yarmolenko on there and think, well, he's the only guy that David Moyes is going to want to bring on. That's not the case anymore. There are a number of people there in all positions, be they centre-backs, full-backs, attacking midfielders, wide players, central midfielders, who David Moyes can call upon. It's no hardship to call on Emerson. It's no hardship to call on Flynn Downs. It really isn't. There are a number of them on there. Agurd's struggling, which he wasn't. No problem. Go and bring on Bonner. We're not in the same situation that we were in before. Yet we seem to be going down the same path, and I am slightly worried that we get to that semi-final and we're knackered again because he seems to be flogging the players too hard. The other thing I've been critical about David Moyes in the past is he's meant to be a manager who uses data. I do wonder. I wonder if he's looking at the physical data for these players. Maybe the data reads okay, but they look more knackered. Maybe he should use the evidence before his eyes. Hopefully he gets this sorted. Maybe he's going to rotate against Crystal Palace. But it is really important. He can't keep playing Rice, Paqueta and Souček in central midfield. He can't keep playing Bowen from now until the end of the season because at some point they're going to be knackered. And it looks like a little bit. I'm worried about history repeating itself. I really am. The good thing is we didn't pick up an injury against Liverpool. I think that was really good. The other thing, and again, this is all about management, is... there's two things really. The substitutions. Cornet looks bereft of any sort of confidence at all. If he's going to be in any way useful, and let's be fair, the last 3 times he's come on as a substitute for West Ham, he's looked useless. If he's going to be useful at all, he needs to get some game time, he needs to get some confidence. Because at the moment, he wasn't even an option to bring on. I wanted him to come on, but he's the only person to come off the bench that has outright pace. So some games you're going to need that pace. If he's not confident, then that is not so good. He looked poor again. 3 times now in the last 3 games he's been substituted on, he's been put through. This time it was by Declan Rice. Should have carried on running and on going. Instead, he took an absolutely wild shot with his left foot. But that's 3 times. Two occasions close to that, he got close to the goal and he missed. I really do, because I think we are going to find ourselves otherwise just rinsing Benrahma, who is not in form. Benrahma is not scoring goals and getting assists at the moment. The other problem is Danny Ings. Now, I don't. If you were watching the game, you wouldn't have heard the commentary that I heard. When I was listening to the commentary, I don't know who the commentator was. Whatever. The pundit was Steve McManaman. The main commentator, couldn't tell you actually. He told a story about David Moyes at Real Sociedad had tried to buy Danny Ings. Apparently, this is just before Danny Ings signed for Liverpool. This is a story being told on BT Sport as the game's going on by the commentator. That David Moyes flew Danny Ings over to Spain when David Moyes was Real Sociedad manager, and he showed him around. Danny Ings had a day at the club with David Moyes at Real Sociedad. Liverpool came in and nicked him. Not my story, I didn't know the story. However, when you factor that into what David Moyes said before the Southampton game, possibly. Maybe I think it was Southampton. If I'm wrong, you have to excuse me. But he said this at some point recently. We need to get to learn about a little bit how Danny Ings plays. These are David Moyes' words. It looks like we might need to get him a little bit of support. He was in the question by, that was in a pre-match, that was in a post-match one, possibly, actually it might have been Aston Villa, whatever. Then in a pre-match one, he said, I'm not an expert on Danny Ings. Now, the two things go together. I didn't like them anyway. I like them even less now because they don't make any sense, particularly not if he should know everything about Danny Ings, particularly now we know the story that actually he tried to buy him at Real Sociedad. My point being, for somebody that knows Danny Ings, he surely doesn't know how to get the best out of him. He doesn't know how to utilise him. I have no idea why we signed that player. He's not a counter-attacking player. He is not at all. This is why I want to get Cornet fit and firing, because Cornet is. It's just he has no confidence. Danny Ings just doesn't have the physical prowess or the pace to be a counter-attacking player. Sure, he still might have a role to play. Sure, he might get another goal or two for West Ham, but it does seem odd. And those two things are going to need to be sorted out by David Moyes. I don't mean to be overly negative, and I hope if you think it is, please don't discount the positive stuff I said at the start. I also think we're looking in pretty good shape, and I'm not saying we're going to go down or anything like that. I just mean to say these are a few things. If we don't want history to be repeating itself, then David Moyes is going to have to address these things. He really is. That was a good performance against Liverpool, particularly bearing in mind the players are tired, but he needs to deal with it. He's now got a decision to make ahead of Crystal Palace. What's he going to do? I don't know. I really hope we're going to see Flynn Downs brought in for someone. I don't know. Really hope we're going to see Maxwell Cornet get a game. Because the option is, by not doing it, is to play Fabianski and Soufal and Zuma and Agurd and Cresswell and Rice, Paqueta, Souček, Bowen, Benrahma and Antonio. And if we keep doing that, I'll tell you now, we will get to a point against AZ Alkmaar. And I just think we'll be looking at a West Ham team who are far more fatigued than the opposition.